Hey, everybody. Welcome to Physical Therapy Private Practice Secrets of the Top 10%. This week, we are interviewing Vikram, and Vikram is the owner and founder of PT Wired. And I'm going to let him explain so much more about that. That's the whole point of this interview. But for those of you watching on YouTube, you're going to enjoy this treat because we're going to have some good conversation here for you to kind of get to meet and greet with both of us. And you're going to see a video that I want to put in the middle of this episode. For you podcast listeners, you're going to hear the audio and it's going to be just as good. You're going to enjoy it just as much. As always, what our mission is here in our podcast and our YouTube and in our existence at Meg Business Management is to bring together collective minds, advanced levels of expertise and experts in the field of physical therapy and within our profession that could actually help advance your clinical efficiency, your clinical productivity, and the quality of care that you're delivering in your clinic, such that the people of your community are winning, your staff is winning, your business is winning, and you are winning. And that is what we want. I want as many PT owners to live the life that they've always envisioned for themselves. And I also want to do what I also want to do in that process is advance the profession of physical therapy as much as I can. So I'm very blessed and honored that so many of you do take the time and minutes to listen to us here on this podcast. I know there's a lot of things you could be listening to, but I am very grateful that you do take the time to park yourself here and listen to what we have to say. I hope you find it entertaining and informative. So let's get started. No need to delay. I want to introduce you guys to Vikram. Vikram, I'm not going to try to say your last name because I read it all the time and I'm like, I can't say that. So why don't you guys go ahead and introduce everybody to who you are and your company, because my first question is going to be, so I'm going to lead you right into it, is going to be what prompted you to go into this business to begin with. But go ahead and give your introductions and a little bit of your history.
Yeah, thanks so much, Brian. My name is Vikram Sethuraman. I'm the founder and CEO of PT Wired. And thanks so much again, Brian, for having me back on the podcast. I enjoyed it. Our first chat, I guess it was like a year and a half ago, maybe a bit more.
Some time.
Yeah. And then since then, we've got a chance to meet in person and everything. So great to be back on here. But yeah, for your question, what prompted me to get into this business and start PT Wired in the first place?
Whoa! Before you tell them that, they need to know a little bit more about you, man. Where'd you come from? I mean, you hit the scene and you got one of the most successful businesses in physical therapy. You've been helping so many of our clients. For those of you guys who are listening, I mean, this is who we connect people to. Tell us a little history, man. Where'd you go to school? What did you start doing before you started doing this?
Yeah. So I went to college at the University of North Carolina in Chapel Hill. And I am not a physical therapist by trade. We have several on the team, but for me, I came at it from the business side as an, with an entrepreneurial background, academically. Right. And while I was at UNC, I played a lot of sports. I was very active and I was number one PT patient. I made a lot of money for some PT clinics. I had, torn PCL, sprained MCL, torn hip labrum with surgery, all the ankle injuries on both sides that you could imagine. So yeah, that's kind of how I first had my introduction to the industry, was over many, many years being super injured and kind of really wanting to find a way out of pain.
You're exactly the type of person that a learning hospital wants on their doorstep. So you're a perfect fit. So you had those experiences, and I'm sure as you were going through those experiences, as do all of our patients, and people just don't think about it, you're paying attention, right? You're paying attention to how you're being greeted. You're paying attention to how the administrative team is working with you as well as the clinical team. And you're kind of getting a feel and a flavor of your overall experience. Having the injuries you've had, I'm sure you've had some good experiences, some not so good experiences, and maybe there were some open holes. Is that kind of what started to trigger your mind thinking forward based on those actual personal experiences?
Absolutely. Yeah. So, I had my mix of good PTs and bad PTs and, helpful rehab, prescriptions and, less helpful. And for me, at the end of the day, what really, I had a surgery, I tried medication, I did all these things. And what really got me back to full health and activity, which was what I was dreaming of for years and years, was PT, and was just pure PT with a good physical therapist who was highly engaged with me, and also I had the buy-in to like work with me to get better. So I am the biggest fan of PT. I see these stats about how 7 to 8% of the people in this country who need PT are actually going in and getting it, and then so many are getting these expensive surgeries and medications, which compared to actual high quality PT is just less effective and way more costly. So I'm the biggest fan of PT, and I think PT is very, very underserved in terms of what potential physical therapy can have for so many people who need it. And yeah, that's a big part of what drove me to start the business in the first place, and then continuing to operate it now 6 years later, just as motivated to continue helping bridge the gap between patients and PTs.
Wow. So you've really been, PT Wired's been up and running for 6 years, huh?
Yeah. Because I started it while I was in undergrad at UNC. It really kind of, we really hit the ground. Well, I guess we really started scaling up about 3 years ago. There was a lot of trial and error at the beginning, bringing on the PT teams, learning so much about the other side. Obviously, I was very versed in the patient side of things, but then there was so much to learn about how these types of problems that PT Wired addresses are highly impactful for the clinic, for the providers. And then that's, so the first couple of years, there was a lot of learning in that regard, and then just general kind of learning how to do a business, how you talk to so many people about in general. So
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I had to ask you about that because I've known you for 3 years, or of you and your business name for 3 years, because that's when you started hitting the wire, or if you will, of the radar, where we started to pick up on it. But you said something a little bit earlier. You said, I had some great PT experience from a PT that was fully engaged and fully vested in my care. And I think when you said that, and I think about the experience of all of our clients that utilize PT Wired, I think that kind of echoes in the way it was designed and the way it was created. I'm just giving for those of you watching, I'm just giving you my opinion here. Vikram's not asking me to say anything. We didn't even talk before this. I sent him a couple questions I might ask, like literally 10 minutes ago. So I'm just saying, from our experience, we've created Meg Academy to be fully engaging and have role play and quizzes and assignments, because we believe teaching is dead. We believe consulting is dead. Like, we are not a fan of consulting or teaching. Teaching is just giving you a bunch of bright ideas. Reading a book and getting an epiphany doesn't mean you can do anything with it unless you actually focus on training and skill development. You're really not moving the needle. You're really not professionally enhancing that person. But when I look at what you're doing, I feel that vibe. I feel like you had that mental, intention, if you will, and yet you're digitizing it. Like, we are using a web-based model. You're using a digitized model. It's good to see. I guess I'm just trying to say, from my own opinion, from my own perspective, I totally jive with what I see. Is that kind of what prompted you to want to get in? Because you looked around and you're like, all this other stuff is just YouTube videos or just billboard instruction. I mean, is that kind of how you felt?
That's exactly it, right? Like, after having such a good experience in PT and in it solving my personal issues, and then seeing some of the inefficiencies that were in the industry just based on what tools and services were available to the physical therapists to assist their patients, that's where I saw the opportunity. Right now, at least, fortunately, it's been changing a lot with the new services out there, but especially back when I started PT, and still to a big degree today, you'll see patients with physical therapists, and they'll have the engagement, they'll have the support, all of the necessary things to help have a behavioral change for the patient to make improvements and get better. But then once they're back at home, all those are gone. And then they're kind of out on their own. They're out in limbo. And it puts such a big onus on the patient to take responsibility for their care, which for a lot of patients, they don't have as much experience, exercising in general versus making these big lifestyle changes, big or small, whether you start smaller or not. So having more tools available for the patient is huge in being able to actually successfully make behavioral change. But then it also gives a lot more power to the physical therapy clinic, because now the physical therapy clinic has a tool at their disposal for engagement. It's not like the patient is set out on their own and then the PT doesn't have access essentially, or very limited access until the patient comes back in the clinic. Now the PT has a tool where they're able to continue engaging the patient almost like as if they're, in the clinic with the patient. That's kind of the idea. That's what we set out to build with PT Wired.
Well, man, that's exactly my question number 2. What problem were you trying to solve when you created this? And, I think everybody knows, people who know me, and we got together at the convention, and I'm at all the conventions talking and lecturing as many as I can, as many as they will allow me to, state conventions, national conventions, PT schools, private networks, the whole lot. And, people who know me and know the depth of what we do, they know we vet deeply and heavily, and we will never endorse or support or have anybody on this podcast that we don't believe is truly what we would do ourselves. And so obviously here you sit, and every now and again, I have owners that will say to me, well, Brian, why do you support this over that? And I don't get questioned on it very much on PT Wired. When I recommend it or our team recommends it, most of our people are like, okay, good. Who do we call? Where do we sign up? Right. But I remember getting a little bit of a question from one owner, and it wasn't that long ago. It was like about 4 months ago, maybe. And the owner said to me, like, why are you endorsing? And I'm like, I don't endorse, I just support, right? I tell people I don't endorse because it sounds like I have some monetary thing. I don't have any monetary thing. I just support, right? I don't want to be a salesperson. So I said, I support what you do and enjoy what you do. And I said to them, I remember the conversation, I'm asking why that. And I said, because I believe when you have PT Wired connected inside your clinic, it's literally an extension of your clinician's arms out into the community with your patient. And that owner was like, oh, I can picture that. And I'm like, that's exactly what you want. That great patient experience and that great patient care that's being done inside your 4 walls, you need to extend that with the patient wherever they go. And I didn't say at home, I said wherever they go outside your office, because you're an app. They could be traveling and on vacation or at home. It doesn't matter. They don't, it's not limited to their computer screen, right? So anyways, I hope I did you service by wording it in that way. Would you think? I hope.
Sounds like you did.
Okay, good. Yeah, because that's kind of how I feel about it. So, I want to have you share with everybody, why is PT Wired a better widget? I mean, look, there are other people that do similar things, home exercise programs, web-based, blah, blah, blah. And here's my wholehearted belief of there's other people that might do similar things to what I do. I do billing and we do credentialing. We do, professional coaching for small businesses and PT, obviously PT, speech, and OT, that's our focus. But I never make others wrong who are trying to do competing things with me. It's not making them wrong. So there are other competitors in the field. Doesn't make them wrong. Doesn't mean they're bad people. But the goal of us, and for you and for myself, is always to strive to be better than the rest, right? To be in the top 10%. I mean, obviously that's the name of this podcast, Secret to the Top 10%. So I would like to play a video for all of you guys listening and for those of you watching, because Vikram can totally explain it. But he has this cool little video on his website. It's connected to his email. I'm sure people can go watch this as many times as they want. I'm going to share my screen, and I definitely want you guys to hear this video because I really think it says it all.
Your patients love coming to your clinic, but how do you engage with them the rest of the time? Let's face it, most home exercise program solutions are living in the past. Video-based exercise programs are just the beginning. But what if your HEP system was a complete patient engagement solution? Welcome to PT Wired, an app created to help physical therapy clinics prevent patient dropout, boost satisfaction, and improve your marketing. You'll get a fully branded mobile app, so patients can access their HEP via videos, message their PT, track their progress, and earn rewards as they complete their exercises. On top of that, we lighten the load on your front office. Patients can schedule appointments, make payments, and access customizable marketing content, including in-app announcements, automated online review generation, and much more. Now, your customer experience outside the clinic matches your patient care inside the clinic, meaning fewer dropouts and increased revenue. Best of all, setting up a patient is easy. The streamlined PT portal is designed to minimize clicks and searching. Quickly build exercise programs with templates or utilize our smart search system to help finish an entire HEP in under a minute. Ready to take your practice to the next level? Book a demo today.
So when I look at that video, I really am, number one, impressed with the steaming coffee cup and how you made that graphic go up as the image is on the screen. That's pretty good attention to detail right there. But what I'm also impressed with is I walk away with a different perspective of what PT Wired is. It's not just an HEP app-based home program. Talk to me and talk to our audience about the other components that it does, because it talked about scheduling, collecting money, tracking progress, marketing, and patient portal. Those are 5 things I don't think people even would consider. I think if they're looking at PT Wire, trying to compare it to its competition, because that's what people do. They always like to try and compare one thing to another, but you're not really comparable because of all these other adjunct functions that are performed within PT Wire. So let's take those one at a time and share with everybody a little bit about that.
Yeah, so the concept with PT Wired is that by getting an app on the patient's device, even if it's originally for home exercise and primarily for home exercise, that's kind of like the foot in the door to get a platform on the patient's device. Once we have the platform on their device, now we have this powerful patient engagement tool that we can leverage for so many other purposes, whether, like you mentioned, it's communication with their provider, scheduling their appointments, paying their bills, marketing. We have a whole feature set devoted to using the app as a customizable marketing tool. And the biggest differentiator, I think, really between us and everybody else is that kind of more multifaceted approach with the platform. The biggest one being also the branding. So one thing I always say, when patients go to different PT clinics, that's the brand they know. Like if I'm going to, active physical therapy or something, that's the brand I care about as a patient. I don't care about PT Wired. I don't care about the EMR system they use. I don't care about anything else.
Good point.
Active PT, that's the brand I know and care about. So if I'm a patient and I'm going home and I'm looking at my phone seeing PT Wired, that's kind of weird to me. So the big thing that we do there is everybody gets a completely custom branded app. So if I'm a patient, I'm downloading an active physical therapy app, a total body physical therapy app, it's all branded to the clinic, and the patient never sees the PT Wired name. And that's to really retain that entire experience, whether I'm in the clinic or out of the clinic, under that physical therapy clinic's brand.
Yeah. I love that. And that degree of uniformity is what people are looking for. They want simplicity. They want uniformity. You don't want to give them more to think with. I can tell you in the early days, when we were doing billing, for an office, and I remember the billing went out under our billing company's name and not the clinic's name. And the patients were calling saying, I think I've been duped. I think I've been, insurance fraud or Medicare fraud. I'm getting these bills from this other company. And, they called us and we're like, oh, okay. We have to brand everything under the brand of the client, not of the service provider. So I totally get that. This was like 20 years ago when this happened, but, now it doesn't, that's not what we do, but I get it. I really get it. People can get a bit nervous in that regard. So really great. I got to tell you, honestly, I'm sitting here thinking, I'm actually sitting in my home gym and I'm like, man, I need PT Wired. I need to get Vikram to hook me up or something, man. I should get like access to some of these own programs because I'm recovering from that disc replacement, L5S1. And my doctor appointment was just last week and he cleared me for full activity. So hence why I'm shooting this podcast in my gym, because when we're done, I'm going to start working out. But you have such great core exercises there because I've seen them. You got a great series of core activities that are safe and sound and really are valid and working. So I'll have to talk to you afterwards to see if I can get to look at those a little bit now that I'm really like focusing on my own rehab. But let's talk seriously about looking forward from today. You know, from your perspective, what do you think PT owners actually should be focusing on? I mean, you have all this functionality, but we're sitting here in 2022 looking forward, just standing right here. What do you think PT owners, if we were going to send a message to them, what should they be focusing on?
Yeah, I think a big stat that a lot of PT owners don't pay enough attention to is their dropout percentage. I think when somebody is focused on growing their practice, a lot of emphasis is placed on patient acquisition versus really obsessing with the experience of the patients you have to make sure you're retaining everybody. Some stats on dropout, which Brian, I know you're probably familiar with, but maybe not everybody with the audience is. 20% of patients drop out in the first 3 visits. 70% of patients don't finish their course of care, so they either drop out early or self-discharge, which means as patient or as the practice size grows, dropout is always increasing. So as you get a bigger clinic, your dropout is going to go up statistically. And a dropout, you know, if somebody drops out at visit 5 when they're supposed to get to 10 visits, it's not like we're just losing out on 5 visits because if that patient doesn't have a good experience, they're not going to be coming back in the future. They're not going to be referring their friends or family. They're not going to be leaving a 5-star Google review. And especially if you're in a market like a rural setting where your patient market isn't really that big, you're bleeding through your market. They're not going to be coming back. So yeah, I think dropout and really obsessing with the patient experience, those are like big things which PTs need to be focusing on, especially because now in 2022, there are way more tools available for PTs to really take full control of the patient journey, whether the patient is in the clinic or outside the clinic, which just weren't available, 5-10 years ago.
Absolutely. And I got to mention 2 other things for you guys that are listening here. The acquisition cost of that patient who then drops out at 3 or 5, that's an additional cost. It's not like Vikram said, it's not just the 5 visits you're missing. It's the dollars you threw away acquiring that patient. And secondly, when you have a dropout rate that's that high, like we flip it around, we call it percentage of kept, like what percent of kept appointments, and all of our clients need to be above 92%. Like everybody's got to be above 92%. If they're not, it's like hit the panic button, put the Batman light up. I mean, there's really a problem. People got to be fleeting in to solve this problem. But when your dropout rate is what it is, and as Vikram's saying, it's the starting point, not the end point. It's the starting point of your investigation. Were they unhappy with the front desk experience? Were they unhappy with what the therapist said in the meet and greet? Were they unhappy with the findings? Did the therapist not educate them thoroughly? Were they not clear on what they were supposed to do at home? Were they not given a comprehensive home program in a portal of communication? I love the fact that we can communicate to our patients through PT Wired, HIPAA compliant. I don't have to spend money on those expensive email services to do it. I can literally talk to all of my people through PT Wired. I mean, obviously, if you talk outside of your patient network, you're going to use a Paul Box or something or some other HIPAA compliant email. Don't get me wrong, but it's going to save you a lot of time on having to have multiple emails for multiple people because you can just use PT Wired. So I really like that. I think you're right. Focusing on that rate is super important. But what do you think you typically hear? Let me ask you this. What do you typically hear? Let me reword it. What do you typically hear from clients who've been on PT Wired? Everybody's hesitant to start something new, right? Change is always like brings you pause. But for those people who can see through to the end and they're like, well, this is my ideal scene. This is what I'm trying to create. Then I need to build on that. Because my biggest challenge standing here today looking forward with PTs is their failure to comprehend the significance of putting in the proper structure with the systems of operation that dovetails with that structure. And you can't just wing it. Like, you have to have a 5-division structure that has command channels and communication lines, but systems of operation that dovetail into it. And you have to literally get as much off your plate as possible. I mean, people have been hearing me talk about our virtual front desk that's coming online in April, and that's coming online. But, you know, the more you can outsource, the more you can digitize, the more you can economize on human beings being involved, the better, right? Absolutely the better. So what I see moving forward is many PT owners have to put more emphasis on building out the complete structure that actually dovetails and supports their systems of operation. And obviously, I'm a big advocate that PT Wired is one of those systems that economizes on payroll and personnel, human capital. But what is your feedback from your clients? Because I think that's really important for people to hear. Like, what do they say after they've been hooked up?
Yeah, the first thing that people will tell me about is the wow factor from patients of not only getting an app with their exercises, with their messaging with their provider, appointment scheduling, bill pay, marketing, etc., but then the branded nature. Since it's branded to the clinic, it creates this wow factor, because from the patient's perspective, this is something that the clinic built.
Right.
Like, they really never see PT Wired's name, and if they just see, wow, this clinic has their own app in the App Store and the Play Store, like, wow,
right,
they're really going the extra mile to give me the support I need. And especially when it's a clinic that's like 4 providers, 3 providers, for them to say, hey, we have our own app, that's impressive. And from a patient's perspective, they're kind of blown away, because we send the clinics, all of them, these flyers that they keep on the front desk with app screenshots and then a QR code. So as soon as the patient walks in, they're seeing that, and they're scanning the QR code, and they're like, okay, they're doing everything they can to give me all the support I need. So that's the very first thing I get, because that's as soon as the app is introduced. But then, after months of implementing the app and being able to track statistical change, it all goes back to the dropout percentage. 15% is the average reduction in dropout that we've measured, which, if you pull up, I have a spreadsheet, I do this on every demo of, calculating what a 15% reduction in dropout means financially. I encourage everybody listening, like, pull up a spreadsheet, put in your eval payments and your visit payments, and then your average visits per patient, your total evals and visits, and then add a 15% reduction in dropout, and then see the impact. Like, everybody should know what that is.
Yeah, everybody should do that math. So I'm really glad you said it. So those of you guys listening, hit rewind, listen to that again. That's an important factor. Let me ask you about that. I get that, and that's the business CEO perspective on it. But the branding of that app, to make me, as a small private practice owner, 1,500 square foot office, and I've got my own branded app. Do you charge extra for that? Are you charging people when you brand and label that? Like, how does that work?
Yeah. So every single app that every single client we have has a branded app. That's the only thing we offer. If you search PT Wired on the App Store, we do have a PT Wired app, but that's just the one we test with. Nobody uses that. So, if you search any, if you look on our website and look at the clients that are listed there, you could search every single one of those in the App Store, and you'll see their app with their name. PT Wired's not listed at all. Okay,
so that's the package. I mean, that's the service. There's nothing like, oh, we provide this white label, and if you want it branded, it's this extra upcharge. It's not like that.
No, that's all we do.
Okay, that's awesome, man. That is fantastic. Well, hey, I think this has given people a food for thought and an expanded understanding and knowledge of what you do and how you can actually help their practice. Again, the focus here on this podcast is to help owners live the life they've envisioned for themselves and advance the profession of physical therapy. And we have to do it with technology. And I kind of chuckle because just before I got on this podcast, I was talking to my executive assistant, Jen. Everybody kind of knows Jen. And Jen, I said, I'm going to do a podcast with Vikram today, and we're going to talk about advancing technology and how his technology actually helps. She goes, oh, my girlfriend a year and a half ago fractured her femur, and she went through 2 or 3 therapy clinics. And it wasn't until she got to her like 4th therapy clinic that she saw tremendous improvement. And I had no idea where she was going with this. She goes, she got tremendous improvement because the 4th clinic embraced all of this clinical technology and, you know, PT Wired and this, she knew that. And then she said something else like hydrotherapy and some other, like, I don't know, other technology. I can't even name it because I'm not sure, but it was like all this advanced technology. And then her girlfriend got much, much better, much quicker. So I'm a huge fan of taking technology and bringing it into our clinic and trying to actually help the patients, like you said, Vikram, within the office and outside the office, which is a really, really important thing. So thinking like that as a practice owner, I think is critical to your success. So what I'd like to wrap this up with, if you don't mind, I'd like to ask you one final question, because I think this is all about helping people, right? I hate it when people, so why'd you become a physical therapist? Well, because I want to help people. I said, no, that's being human, right? I mean, being human is wanting to help your fellow man and your fellow woman and fellow people, right? But looking forward from here, Vikram, let me ask you this question. What do you think we can do to actually make this a better planet to live on? Like, where do you think we have to put some of our time and attention? I mean, I'm not asking you to solve all world problems, but there are a lot of things going on today. And from your perspective, I mean, you travel, you talk to people all around the country, you hear as much as I hear. What do you think we need to do to try to make this a better place?
Yeah, I think especially in our country where we're, more polarized than ever, I think, just assuming the best in somebody else until proven otherwise should always be the approach. I'd rather be optimistic and wrong than pessimistic and right. And often I feel that based on your expectations going into some conversation or whatever interaction, a lot of times your expectations will become reality. So if you assume that it's, and come into a conversation or again, an interaction or whatever, assuming something in somebody, then that type of energy that you're bringing can bring about that, whether it's a negative thing or positive. So yeah, I think, small changes can make a big difference. And I think just assuming the best in people, even, assume the best intentions, assume the best motivations. And then if you're proven otherwise, that sucks. But then I think it'll happen a lot less than if you're come into it pessimistically.
Yeah, you're spot on, man. I think that was very well said. I could not support that any more than me just simply saying this. Let's evaluate each other based on our character and our ethics and our beingness and doingness, rather than being so tribal. I mean, there's just so much tribalism, and I blame a lot of that on social media. So for those of you listening, kind of pay attention to that. Like, are things actually trying to sway you or support this dug in kind of perspective about anything and everything in this world, right? So I think that would behoove all of us to just really take a positive approach in engaging new people. And until proven wrong, like Vikram said, let's just think the best. I know when I'm in conversations, I'm typically trying to run in my head things I could admire about the person I'm talking to, because it makes for a better conversation. So thank you so much, Vikram. I admire a lot about you as a person and a lot about what you've done professionally in our industry. And I mean that sincerely. I'm not just telling you that. I've been with you at the conventions. I've had so many people working with you, and I think you just continue to dig in and make a better and better product for the benefit of people who are actually getting cared for. So well done, man. You deserve a lot of credit. For those of you guys listening, you can get information on Vikram below. Please, if you like these kinds of YouTube videos and podcasts, click subscribe, click like, give me thumbs up. All of those things help us to do a better job in getting our message out there to helping more and more PTs succeed in private practice and essentially helping more and more people in our community. So that's it, everyone. Thank you so much. As always, start each and every day expecting to do well, nothing less. Take care, everybody.